Good morning. It's Wednesday. Wednesday. So, how is everybody? I have to say, it's been super hectic and busy. Not necessarily just with orders, but I am organizing. So, let's start off with, it's October. There are many things happening in October. One, mainly, the most important for me right now, is that it's breast cancer awareness. And as we all know, back in 2019, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. So it is something that is super close to me heart to try and raise money and raise awareness around breast cancer and how important it is to get your checkups and stuff. I'm not going to really talk too much about it. I think on Friday I will tell you my story, but today not so much. Then also, it is Halloween month, so I'm prepping for Halloween. So that will be happening starting. All preparations start from next week, right through to the end of the month. We're hoping to have a whole lot of sales and have lots of fun with Halloween. Not because we necessarily celebrate it, but because it's just fun for the kids to dress up and go trick-or-treating. And then another thing that's important this month is it's Mental Health Awareness Month. It's also the reason why I have been playing on my streams all these motivational talks and oh, sorry, I'm just trying to sip right. Interesting topics about, how to set your mind right so that you are in a better frame of mind. And the things that you can do to be more productive and all those kind of things. So if you've been watching my streams the last couple of weeks, I think it's the last 2 or 3 sessions, live sessions. I've had stuff being played in the background. So, which is all good for motivation and for upliftment and possibly help somebody. So, but this week for me is Cancer Awareness Week, in that on Saturday, my husband and I, we are Zumba instructors, and we are hosting a breast cancer awareness charity drive for Pink Drive, and all proceeds are going to the Pink Drive for breast cancer awareness. And so it's been very hectic trying to, because I've organized it within 3 weeks, trying to just get all the little bits all sorted, making sure we've got instructors, the playlists, prizes, and all that kind of stuff. So one of the things that I'm going to do, because I can, and it's my business, and and why not, is that I am going to be creating a strawberry pink velvet cake. I'm not sure if there is anything like that out there, but that's what I'm going to create. If it's something new out there, then yay. So I'm going to be creating a strawberry pink velvet cake that I'm going to raffle on Saturday at the event in trying to make extra money to raise extra money for the Pink Drive. So one of the things that I'm going to do, she's my cancer fairy. I don't know, I call her my cancer fairy. So I'm a lover of fairies, and I have wanted a fairy since a fairy tattoo for the longest time, but I'm a collector of fairies. And when I was diagnosed with breast cancer, I stumbled across this beautiful little lady, and I call her the cancer fairy because she is actually all in pink. I know she's black and white here, and she is carrying the pink ribbon for breast cancer. So I'm going to recreate her into a 3D, well, I'm going to do my best. I'm going to create her into a 3D fondant or gum paste figurine to top the top of my cake that I will be raffling off on Saturday. So yeah, I'm going to do her today so that she is done. I'm hoping that I will have her done by 12, as much as possible. Then I might not finish off the finishing touches because, as you know, I like to work in stages and I don't want to rush her, and I want her to be pretty and I want her to look good. Normally I would do wings in gelatine, but there's a whole lot of glitter and all sorts of things on her, so I will do her wings in gum paste as well. I'm not going to make her wings gelatine where it's flimsy. And then on Friday I will be putting the cake, decorating and putting the cake together, and then I will share my cancer journey on Friday with you, and yeah, what happened, how I am, and where we're at with my breast cancer journey. But yeah, I'll share that story with you on Friday when I'm busy decorating the cake and putting it together. So let's get on with it, because I need to be done by 12 because we are load shedding, which means that the power is going off. So I would like to be finished as much as possible by then, if not sooner, because I don't want it shutting everything down. Well, I'll have no internet access. I need to be done before then. And then, yeah. Okay, so let's get on with it. I'm going to be playing some talk on, let me just find it. The stop holding yourself back and get inspired and go after what you want. So I'm going to play that in the background for you to listen and hope you enjoy it. I might land up you know, doing something extra, and then yeah, because I think it's only like an hour, so yeah, we'll see how far we get. Okay, I think, how long is this? Oh, it's just over an hour, so I probably will end up playing another one as well. There's one that I think will be quite helpful, is to sleep smarter, and how to get better sleep, which I think is fantastic. And yeah, we'll see what else we'll listen to. But in the meantime, we're going to start off with stop holding yourself back. Okay, let's just make sure that everything is, I'm going to switch my mute. So I'm going to switch the camera off, my logo off, so that you can see more of what is going on here, which is going to be better for you. And then I'm going to mute myself, so you won't be able to hear me. I'm not going to talk anyway. And then I'm just going to be doing, and we're going to be listening. Chat to you in a bit. So let's switch. Logo off. Laptop camera. And let's switch this off.
Jealousy is one of the most powerful directional signals on the planet, because you're only jealous of people that are doing things or have things that you actually want. It's impossible to be fake jealous. Whatever you're jealous of is hitting something deeply personal. Fucking pay attention to it. Instead of stewing in it, go, oh, flip it. How could I take those things that I'm really now really inspired by and take action and go get them in my life? Because the thing about jealousy is, it's just your inspiration that's blocked.
Mel Robbins, welcome back to the show.
Oh, thank you, Tom.
It's been 4 years.
That's hard to believe.
I'm super excited to have you back in this chair to talk about your new book,
Thank
The
you.
High Five Habit.
The High Five
You have a
Habit.
really freaky way of taking a concept that is deceptively simple.
And stupid.
I won't say stupid, but it could be stupid in lesser hands. How about that?
Okay.
And I really enjoyed the book. The part of the book that jumped out and really grabbed me, there were two. One almost made me cry, which we'll talk about later, because I am very surprised that I liked that particular part. I thought, I'm going to hate the punchline of this story. But is the Dallas Uber driver.
Oh.
So as somebody who has gotten into countless Ubers, and some small percentage of them know who I am, and then of course they start asking questions. Talk to me about chasing your dreams and this quote that you have that an aha moment does not necessarily lead to an aha life.
Yeah, the Uber driver in Dallas that's in this book. I get choked up when I think about him. An aha moment.
Why choked up?
I get choked up because what happens for me every single day is, and you hear from people every single day, you've got millions and millions of people that are inspired by, empowered by, impacted by your content. There are people out there that use your work as a lifeline, and it is humbling. And what I am really present to in the work that I'm putting out, in the stuff that I'm sharing, whether it's my failures or the things that I'm using that are helping me in my own struggles, is just how much people are holding themselves back and how much pain people feel. Because most folks know what they dream about and what they want. And yet they're spending all of their time and energy arguing against what they want. And so you can have all these epiphanies. I hope that when somebody listens to our conversation and watches this, that they have a massive aha moment. But it's not gonna mean fucking shit if you don't take action and do something about it. The aha moment is the door that opens. But your new life does not begin unless you fucking step through the door. And most people, and that's what was so kind of, you know, the simple idea of high-fiving yourself, of encouraging yourself, of supporting yourself. Most people, when you have an aha moment and the door to your new life opens up, instead of going, I got this, let's go, and high-fiving yourself to step forward, most of us go, I don't know if I'm worth it. I don't know if right now is the right time to do this. I don't think I'm good enough. I've failed so many times, I can't go through that door. And that's the problem I want to attack right now. That there is somewhere in your life that you know what you want. You can feel it pulling you. And you are actively arguing against it. You're bringing yourself down. You're beating yourself out. Like, people will cheer for you and me. They won't cheer for themselves. I'm the same way. And so this Uber driver, the story that you're talking about, I get into the car and we start driving, and I'm on the phone as we're driving, and I'm having a conversation with somebody about this daytime talk show that I launched, which was a dream with Sony Pictures Television, and then was promptly fired after season 1. It was a huge fucking failure because we didn't make it to season 2. Huge failure in real world terms. Right. Massive success when it comes to the timeline of my life. And so I'm talking to this person about the talk show. I hang up the phone and this Uber driver comes alive. He's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're in my cab. And I'm like, why? And he says, because I want to talk to you about something. I think you can help me. And I'm like, great, how can I help you? And he says, I have a dream of being a Oscar-winning actor and creating opportunities for other Black and Latino men to do the same in acting. And I'm like, freaking fantastic. What the fuck are you doing in Dallas? Right? Yeah, the guy's 25. And so I go, you know, the game is in New York and LA. I mean, sure, you can act, you can write stuff, you can be here in Dallas, but why are you not in LA? Why are you not in New York? And he's like, you're right, you're right, you're right. I need to move to LA. I'm like, why not? And he says, I have $700 in my bank account. And I'm like, that's freaking fantastic. You have $700 in a car? Dude, drop me off and get driving. What are you waiting for? And so we have this whole conversation, and I write about it in this book, where I am actively arguing for his dream. and he is actively arguing against his dream. And what is so sad is throughout this conversation, Tom, he's like, you're right, $700 could get me there. You're right, I am only 25. You're right, if I keep thinking and thinking and thinking and thinking about what I want to be doing, I'm not only going to drive in circles, my whole life is going to spin in circles as I think about what I want and I don't do shit about it. And then you are going to find yourself not at 25, but at 45 or 65, and you're going to be so filled with regret that you never fucking put a bet on yourself. And so this conversation ends with him declaring that he's going to go to California and me giving him a bunch of tools that I talk about in this book. And the point of the story is, does he move or not? I don't fucking know. The point of the story is, it's so easy to see what somebody else should do. It's so easy to cheer for somebody else. We all do that, right? We cheer for our favorite sports teams. We follow our favorite influencers and authors. We plan birthday parties for our friends. We take on extra work from our colleagues. We support everyone around us. We do not know how to do it for ourselves.
Yeah, it's really an interesting trick of the mind. And like you, I have this similar sense of I want to be able to want it for people.
Yeah.
And the one thing in my life that I am very grateful for is that I know how to build desire. I know how to go down the process of wanting something.
What is that process for you of desire? Because what I've found in this book is, here's the thing for most people, and I'm hoping that your process will attack this. What I've discovered that is heartbreaking is the average person cannot celebrate themselves. I'm going to ask everybody who's watching this to tomorrow morning stand in front of the mirror. We're going to unpack this whole thing and try to high five yourself. And most
really
people,
fast, give people the science behind why that's meaningful.
So I have this habit of every single morning, I stand in front of the mirror and I take a moment and I raise my hand and I give my reflection a high five. And there's so much science behind this. So instead of seeing yourself, right, and having this moment in the mirror, you know what the average person does? First of all, we beat ourselves down. So I would look in the mirror for 40 some years and be like, oh my God, my freaking jowls look like saddlebags on a goddamn horse going in the Grand Canyon. My eyes my neck is only striped. My one boob's hanging lower than the other. I look like shit, my gray hair. Like, I start bringing myself down. And when you start going down that road with your reflection, then your thoughts go to, I didn't get to that email. I forgot to text Lisa back. Oh my gosh, the dog still needs to be walked. I've got 9 minutes for my first Zoom call. You're now checking out. And that moment in the mirror every morning could be a profound moment where you lift yourself up and you check back in with your intention. So the first piece of research, and this is recent from Harvard Business School, is that a simple moment in the morning where you set an intention about who you're going to be today impacts productivity, how you show up as a leader. It impacts your confidence. It impacts your mood all day long. Just that simple moment of setting an intention. So that's research number one. Instead of standing in front of the sink in your bathroom and criticizing your appearance or mindlessly going on autopilot, check back in and let's teach you to make it a habit to lift yourself back up.
I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, brought to you by our sponsors at Athletic Greens. To receive a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase, visit athleticgreens.com/impacttheory. Enjoy the episode.
Second piece of research, and this comes from a whole field of study called neurobics. Neurobics is like aerobics for your mind. I didn't make this up. This is literally, you can speed up the development of new neural pathways by marrying physical activity with a change in thought. And so traditionally, I know you've covered this on your show, if you, for example, were to brush your teeth, I'm a right-hander, if you were to brush it with your other hand and think a new thought, the fact that your brain is focusing on brushing with your non-dominant hand activates more focus on the new thought. It accelerates the learning. So you take neurobics, a physical activity with a different thought, and let's talk about a high five, for example. What does a high five mean to you?
That somebody did something awesome or I did something awesome.
Correct. And if you think about the times in your life when you've gotten a high five, it's because somebody's like, Tom, you're amazing. Tom, get your attitude out of the can. You got this. Tom, you're going to make this shot. Tom, we can still win. I believe in you. Keep going. You have a lifetime positive association with giving other people high fives stored right here in your subconscious mind. When you raise your hand to your own reflection, it is impossible for you to think, God, I look fat. Boy, am I an asshole. I really screwed up my life. You can't do it because your lifetime association with this motion is all, I believe in you, I got you, I see you, I celebrate you. And so you, in the moment of doing it, override decades of negative self-talk. It's incredible. Now, have you ever gotten a high five where somebody misses the hand or it's sort of like, it sucks, right?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, what do you do when that happens?
I redo it.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's because a high five requires you to be present and there is an intention behind it. So you can't raise your hand to your own reflection without now grounding yourself in the moment. That's just the beginning of the research. I can go on about the NBA. And
that was my favorite part. Hearing about the NBA, like even now it's giving me chills. Like, and especially because we're recording this still as everybody thought we were getting out of the pandemic. And now we've got the variant. Now even I'm starting to worry about the lack of physical contact and just like the cues that we give each other through touch like that. So this was one of my favorite parts of the book. The NBA thing.
I love this research too, because you know what happened with the high five is, look, I did this on a low moment for myself. Like, so my brand of self-help is Mel's life is kind of fucked up at the moment and she can't figure out how to help herself. So she stumbles by accident on something really stupid on its face and it feels good. And then I share it with my audience. And if they pick up on it and then I'm like, okay, we're on to something. So for me, the high five, Tom, began, I'm fired from my talk show. My book contract is canceled. Every speech has been canceled. My kids are now home. So we've got 3 kids, 22, 20, age 15, all in varying states of distress. I am triggered because my origin story, as you know, from being on the show and us being friends, the 5-second rule was 12 years ago, losing everything. And so I'm now having this feeling like I'm about to lose everything. And I'm also feeling like I'm losing grip on reality as the pandemic is hitting and as my kids are in distress. And I don't know what to do, just like everybody on the planet. I find myself in my bathroom one morning in my underwear, and I am having this spiral of negative thoughts. I look like shit. I don't know how to fix this. I wish somebody would solve this for me. I feel overwhelmed. I feel scared about my parents' health. I feel scared about everybody on the front lines. And even though I'm literally, like you, somebody that empowers other people, I didn't know what the fuck to say to myself. And as pathetic as it sounds, I found myself just raising my hand, just in a way to basically be like, shut up, Mel. Come on, girl. You, like, put your shoulders back, lift your chin. You got this. You can do this. And something shifted, and I went on with my day. And then the next morning, I walk into my bathroom, and this is the other weird thing about the high five. I've literally either criticized myself or ignored myself in the mirror for decades. When you start to have a moment with yourself, the crazy part is you start to build a partnership with yourself.
That's interesting.
Like, you know, when you are pulling out of your driveway or you're walking down the street and you see a neighbor and they greet you, you will start to have that experience when you create this intentional moment with yourself in the mirror every morning. And so as I started to do this, I thought, this is actually making me feel like the wind is at my back when I leave the bathroom. It's making me feel just like when you leave a huddle in sports and you high five, or you're a runner running a race or doing some big endurance challenge and some spectator high fives you, or another racer's like, come on, you got this, as you're dragging down low. It gives you a little energy. Like, I think too about this high five a lot. Like, I know you're friends with David Goggins. I'm a huge fan of Goggins. And I know there's a lot of people that watch this show, especially men, that are like, this sounds kind of stupid. This is the equivalent of Goggins' cookie jar moment. So we all think, like, we've all been raised like, tough love, hard on myself, this, bullshit. The research is clear on this. Being hard on yourself is not fucking motivating. It's demotivating. And if you already feel like a failure, or you feel a sense of shame, or you're overwhelmed, beating yourself up for where you are does not fucking work. It drives you into the gutter. The most motivating force in the world, on the planet, based on research, hands down, is empowerment, encouragement, support, and celebration. And for our entire lives, we have outsourced that to somebody else. The research is very clear. So the NBA study, they did this big study looking at NBA teams. And they could predict in the study who was going to be in the championship rounds based on, in the preseason, what teams had the most high fives, fist bumps, and back pats. Why? Because those kind of gestures create partnership and trust. And I'm here to tell you, when you start doing it in the mirror, you're creating partnership and trust with yourself. And so, one of the things that I love about this is that in a moment when you feel alone, you can give yourself the boost, the support, the empowerment that you need to keep going. And here's another piece of research that's also like, holy cow. You're a big proponent of the growth mindset. You guys talk about it all the time on this show, right? So researchers wanted to know, what is the most empowering way to motivate kids through a really big challenge, okay? They divide the kids into 3 groups. This takes the marshmallow test to a whole nother level. You got one group of kids that are doing a challenging task and they're getting the fixed mindset praise, which we all know does not work. Oh, Tom, you're so smart. Oh, Tom, I love your glasses. That's going to help you. Oh, Tom, you got a great smile. Oh, Tom, I just love so much about you. I know you can do this. So that's one group. The second group gets the growth mindset kind of praise. Tom, you are such a hard worker. Tom, your perseverance is unbelievable. Tom, you just keep going. That does better, obviously, than telling you that you're smart, because it makes you motivated to work hard. The third group, they just got a simple high five. The researchers didn't even say anything to the kids. They just walked up, gave them a high five. The group of kids that got a simple high five outperformed, outworked through all of the challenges, all of the other forms of praise. Why? Because a high five is something deeper than praise. It fulfills your most fundamental needs as a human being. When somebody high fives you, you feel seen, you feel heard, and you feel like somebody has acknowledged you for the unique person that you are. Let's just talk for a second about the things that go viral. You can always find going viral a teacher standing outside of a classroom doing what? Greeting kids with individual handshakes. And we see that and we're like, oh, that's amazing. Why? Because every one of those kids, before they walk into the classroom, feels seen, they feel heard, and they feel acknowledged for the unique individual that they are, all through a simple handshake or high five. And one of the reasons why I'm so excited about this is because in starting to just kind of put it out there very casually on the story, in the very beginning, because I've been researching this now for a year, I started to get back all of the objections that people had to doing it. And they're fucking sad, Tom. And this gets to the heart of why I think so many people are stuck. One of the biggest objections that people had to standing in front of the mirror, take a moment, look at yourself, and then raise your hand, is people said over and over and over again, I haven't done anything worthy of high-fiving. High-fiving feels like a celebration. I don't have the number on the scale that I want. I don't like my bank account. I don't enjoy what I do for a living. I've made a shitload of mistakes. I'm struggling with trauma. I don't have anything to celebrate. And what I realized is people are making a fundamental mistake. you are withholding the very support, empowerment, and celebration that you need to change and to do the hard work and to face the things that you're scared of. And that's why you're not changing.
This is so interesting. So I'm going to push you on this. I'm super curious because one of the things I love about you is you're so blunt and honest about, hey, if you want to have self-worth, you have to do things that you think are worthy. I'm a huge proponent of that. And yet I do recognize that you have to let yourself off the hook to really get started. So how do you help people anchor on something? Is it just, hey, it's the fucking neurochemistry of the situation, you have to do it?
Yeah, pretty much. Because if you can't stand in front of the mirror and raise your hand and high-five yourself just because you got your ass out of bed and you're breathing, you will never get what you want in life, ever. There is something in the resistance to it. And if you unpack the resistance, you will find the reason why you don't have what you want. You either think you're not worthy of it, or you think that it's kind of stupid, or you have been brought up to believe that for women in particular, you're going to be bitchy or selfish or not likable if you're celebrating yourself. There is something in the resistance to you simply cheering for yourself.
So talk to the person though that, so as of right now, they really believe, the world has shown them that they aren't worthy. It's not like they question it, they know it to be true.
Yeah.
How do you help people, because I recognize that as a lie, or even if it's true, it's useless, but how do you help people out of that moment?
So the first thing that I would say is, how is treating yourself as if you're unworthy helping you? Like, let's just get strategic and common sense about it. Is the negative shit you're saying and the support that you're withholding helping you feel better? If it's not, try this. Try celebrating yourself 5 days in a row. Literally, try starting your day by waking up and raising your hand and high-fiving yourself in the mirror just because you're breathing, and see what happens. We have a woman that wrote to us who's in a domestic violence shelter.
Oof.
She's lost everything. She's been in abusive relationships. She has a tremendous amount of childhood trauma. She is doing the high-five habit, and here's what she had to say about it. I have nothing right now. I have a tremendous amount of evidence from my life that I have fucked everything up. But you know what this high-five habit is showing me? I still have me. I can have my own back. I can be here for myself. The world has told me and convinced me that I can't, but every morning when I stand here and I stare at myself in the mirror and I raise my hand in defiance of all the shit that's happened to me, I keep going. I am saying I believe in myself. And when you have that small reversal, that small act of defiance, and that's what it is. If you're like heavy and you're eating emotionally or you're feeding your trauma, when you raise your hand and celebrate yourself, even though you don't like what you look like, it's an act of fucking defiance to all the stuff that you have survived in your life. And the best part about it, you don't have to fucking say anything. And you know, the reason why this is so important is most mantras are complete bullshit because you don't believe it. You know, we all know we need to accept ourselves. We all know we need to love ourselves, but how? How do you do it, to your point, when you have a bunch of evidence stacked up that you've failed or reasons that you see that make you feel like you've blown it or you're not worthy of it? I'll tell you how. You freaking raise your hand and high-five yourself anyway. Because beating yourself up will not make you do the work to get healthy. And tearing yourself down over the shit that you've done or the terrible relationships that you're in, it's not going to empower you to change the patterns that are keeping you stuck. But raising your hand in an act of defiance or a fuck you to the past that you survived and saying, I'm still here, which means I still have a shot to change my life. That is what this means.
There's another thing that you talk about in the book that I think ties to this really well, which is the reticular activating system, the RAS.
Mm-hmm.
And you have this thing, which you say you look for the hearts.
Yes.
And it's really an interesting psychological principle of you're going to see what you look for.
Yes.
And whether that's a red Mazda or whatever you say in the book, or whether that's a heart when you're walking around, whether that's a reason to love your wife, whatever. if you look for it, you're going to find it. And if
Yes.
it's a problem and a reason that you're, you know, a dirtbag and a reason that you're not worthy and all of that, you're going to see them and they will be there for you and they will overwhelm you. What is this idea of looking for hearts? What is that and how do people use it?
Okay, so I love this tool because obviously the high five in the mirror, it's like a Trojan horse. It's the beginning of building this partnership with yourself. And throughout the book, I then unpack all these other little tools and habits that you can use that are in this lane of empowerment, support, belief in self.
The book, and I want to take a second to point this out, the book is rich with a bunch of other ideas. So
Yes.
anybody that's tempted to say, okay, well, I've already heard the high five myself and I'm done, you did a really good job of and to be honest, I'm not even sure, I guess because it was what unlocked things for you in your life, but there's like 15 things that you could have titled the book after.
Yeah.
So anyway, back to this.
So the reticular activity system, the RAS for short, if you don't know what it is, picture a hairnet over your brain that is a live network. And the RAS is a filter, and it has a huge job. And it is a filter that blocks out 99% of the world and lets in about, 0.000000001%. And it is always changing. There are only 4 things, Tom, that get through the hairnet on your head. The sound of your name, and you've experienced this because you've been walking through a crowd and you're like, did somebody say my name? Right? The
cocktail party effect.
Cocktail party effect. The second thing that gets through is any sort of threat. So if you hear a loud noise and you go like this, there are lots of noises you didn't hear, but the loud one you kind of duck because it's a threat. The third thing is when your partner is interested in sex with either you or someone else. That's why you're like, why are you checking that person out, right? You know, because the brain is letting that information in. The fourth thing, and this is where the transformation begins. Your brain will let in anything that it believes is important to you. The Zygarnik effect is the documented fact that when something is important to you, and I'll explain what that means, your brain opens up a checklist in your mind. And now your brain, once it puts this item on your checklist, it will store the checklist in your subconscious. It's encoded in your RAS, and your mind is now on the alert to spot things related to it. The way that you make yourself feel like something is important is your nervous system goes on alert while you're thinking about it. You're either super excited about something, oh, this is super important, or this is the trauma effect. You go on alert and you have something really bad happen, which is why things continue to bring it up throughout the rest of your life. So when you understand that if something's important to you, your filter will change in real time how you see the fucking world. You now know how to change your brain to work for you. And looking for hearts is the way I'm going to prove to you that this happens. I want to give you one other example because everybody's experienced this. If you've ever gone shopping for a new car or you've dreamt about having a new car, what happens immediately when you get excited about that new car is your mind goes, Zygarnik effect, oops, okay, Tom wants the new Bronco. That's cool. So what do you see now? You see Broncos everywhere. Now, they were always there, but your mind is letting them in because the Zygarnik effect is now made it on a checklist. It's changed the RAS. And so I am going to prove to you that it is unbelievably cool that you can change the way that you view the world by looking for heart-shaped objects. So tomorrow when you wake up, you're going to start your day by high-fiving yourself in the mirror. I want you to examine what the resistance about because you're going to start to then be able to unpack what's holding you back. Then you're going to go out in the world and just like tell your mind, I want to see a heart today. Look for a rock, look for a leaf, look in your like latte. Is there a little shape there? Is there an oil stain on the floor? And when you see one, stop and go, shit, like there's a scavenger hunt. I never would have seen that before. Thank you, brain. Now your brain's like, woo, more hearts. You will start to see hearts everywhere. And when you can start to train your brain and realize, whoa, this is actually a cool thing. This is high-fiving your mind. When you can see hearts, you can now go, wait a minute. If I can change what I see based on what I tell it, Maybe if I got serious about not constantly saying I'm a failure, I wouldn't attach that or see it everywhere. Maybe if I got serious about saying, I can figure anything out, this is happening for a reason, instead of I'm fucked, you say, okay, I'm going to learn something with this. It changes the way your brain filters everything. And this is such an important piece to the book because we've all had the experience where you love somebody deeply and you see all their incredible attributes and all they see is failure, or all they see is the weight that they can't lose. And it doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter what kind of pep talk or support you give them. Your loved one still only sees what they hate about themselves. Blame the filter in your brain. You have been bitching about your appearance or the weight on your scale, or the fact that you're a failure for so long, your brain believes it's important to you to see reasons why this is true. And one of the things I got to say about this, and everything in the book, is the tools are simple, Tom. But it's super important to say, just because you change and start celebrating yourself, it's not going to make the weight disappear suddenly. It doesn't change the number on the scale overnight. What it changes is you. And that changes your ability to deal with the problems and the issues you want to change in your life.
Let's talk about Athletic Greens, the all-in-one daily drink to support better health and peak performance. With so many stressors in life, it's difficult to maintain effective nutritional habits and give our bodies the nutrients it needs to thrive. Busy schedules, poor sleep, exercise, stress, or simply not eating enough of the foods that your body needs. That's where Athletic Greens can help. Their daily drink is like nutritional insurance for your body that's delivered straight to your door. Developed from a complex blend of 75 vitamins, minerals, and whole food sourced ingredients, Athletic Greens is a greens powder engineered to help fill the nutritional gaps in your diet. Athletic Greens continues to obsessively improve this one holistic formula based on the latest research, producing 53 iterations over the last decade and counting. It's lifestyle friendly, whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free, and contains less than 1 gram of sugar without compromising on taste. So many people on our team at Impact Theory are talking all about their experiences with Athletic Greens. They love the taste and how they can get the micronutrients from various veggies without having to cook or buy groceries. So when our marketing associate Chase is busy and he knows he's not going to be able to easily eat any greens, he can bring along Athletic Greens and make sure that he's still getting adequate micronutrients from the powder without having to eat an entire farm's worth of a salad. So whether you're looking for peak performance or better health, covering your bases with Athletic Greens makes investing in your energy, immunity, and gut health each day simple, tasty, and efficient. So whether you're looking for peak performance or better health, covering your bases with Athletic Greens makes investing in your energy, immunity, and gut health each day simple, tasty, and efficient. And right now, Athletic Greens is doubling down on supporting your immune system during the winter months. They're offering our audience a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 travel packs with your first purchase. Simply visit athleticgreens.com/impacttheory. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/impacttheory and get your free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs today. All right, guys, give it a shot. Take care and be legendary. You have some really counterintuitive ideas, bold stances on things, which I found incredibly interesting. One of them is jealousy. And that not to just reject that stuff offhand, but that there's actually information carried in those strong emotions.
Jealousy is one of the most powerful directional signals on the planet because you're only jealous of people that are doing things or have things that you actually want. It's impossible to be fake jealous. Whatever you're jealous of is hitting something deeply personal. Fucking pay attention to it. Instead of stewing in it, go, oh, flip it. That's interesting. I wonder why I'm jealous. What is it about it? Oh, It's that they're doing it consistently. It's that they've built a team. It's that they've aligned their work together so that they're spending more time together. How could I take those things that I'm really now really inspired by and take action and go get them in my life? Because the thing about jealousy is it's just your inspiration that's blocked. Jealousy is sort of the insecurity that you have that blocks this inspiration. I guarantee you, back to the Uber driver, he's jealous of all the other actors earning Oscars because he's so inspired by the thought of doing that in his own life, but his insecurity is blocking action. His fear is blocking action. So instead of it being inspiration, it shows up as jealousy. And I'm here to tell you, the second you feel jealousy, frickin' whoop, stop. Okay, let's unpack that. What exactly is it about it? And now, if I were inspired by it, because there's enough success to go around for everybody, if I can use that as a roadmap to then go figure out how I might be able to do that for myself, wow, talk about a game changer. And now let's add in the high five. What if every time I took a little step, I celebrated myself for just doing it? Now you're building small wins and momentum in a direction that's meant for you. That's how you change your life.
Yeah, that to me, getting people to understand that the idea that there's enough success for anybody, it doesn't matter if you're copying somebody for no reason other than the only thing that matters in life is, are you having fun? Is this a joyful life? Are you working hard at something that matters to you?
Yeah.
And whether or not it's even a carbon copy of somebody else, if you're having a ball, you've already won.
Totally.
And getting people to recognize, like, and this is why I like your answer around, at some point you just have to accept you're high-fiving yourself in the mirror because the neurochemistry says that that's what you need to do. Getting people to understand neurochemistry is the game.
Yeah.
And once you understand the game that you're playing, then you can play it well. But if you don't understand the game, then you're going to get stuck and you're going to be stuck forever. And you talk a lot about taking responsibility for that, recognizing nobody's coming to save you. Something you said in the book, it's something that you've said in interviews, it's something that I absolutely think is really powerful. How do we use that? Why is that important to recognize?
Well, it's important to recognize because, first of all, nobody is coming. I mean, if you've been sitting around waiting for somebody to discover you, to pick you, to save you, to rescue you, to give you your shot, it's not fucking happening. Like, at some point, you got to wake up and realize when you're 18 and you're out of that house, you have to parent yourself. Your life is your responsibility. And as a woman, one of the things that I found to be extraordinarily transformational is when I stopped, in a very traditional sense, looking to my partner to be responsible for providing for me. Providing financially, providing the support, providing, when I realized, wait a minute, it starts with me. I have to be able to figure out how to make myself happy. That's, by the way, the secret to a happy relationship. Marry somebody who's happy and work on your own happiness.
Preach.
And so when you stop outsourcing your happiness, your validation, your support, all of it, and you bring it back in, and you get responsible for it, it sounds scary. It's so liberating because you could do anything. When you're responsible, when you're the driver of your life, when you're not looking out to anybody else to fix it for you, can you ask for help? Of course, but the buck stops with you. You're the one that has to do the work. You're the one who has to push your own ass. You're the one who has to figure out what makes you happy. You're the one who has to figure out and become self-aware about what you need. And then you're the one that has to find whatever it is, the courage or being humble enough to ask for help. Even if it's asking for help from the biggest ally that you have, which is the person staring back at you in the mirror every damn morning.
Yeah, I don't know why people aren't more obsessed with their goals. It's like, if my goals demand that I ask for help, then I'm going to ask for help. Like, I'm not even going to let anything else get in the way. I'm just so obsessed with, if my goal is exciting and honorable, then I should actually want to achieve it. And therefore, whatever it is that I need to do.
So, Tom, this is why. And this comes back to what has made me really sad and deeply moved by the kinds of things that people are sharing. Most people aren't obsessed with their goals because they don't believe they're worthy of them. It's easy to dream about what you want, but in between where you are and what you want, there's a tremendous amount of stuff you got to change and do. And if you have a lot of trauma in your background, or you were raised by somebody who beat the shit out of you or told you were a piece of shit, or if you've had to deal with microaggressions or racist, discriminatory, systematic crap your entire life, you have been given the message over and over and over, even though it's not true, that you don't deserve it, that there's something wrong with you. And if you don't, at some point, be defiant against what the world or your caregivers or your past experience has pounded into your brain incorrectly, unfairly, you will forever be stuck with that story. You are not responsible for what happened to you. You survived what happened to you. But you do have a responsibility to heal yourself and to do the work to change so that you can be the happy, fulfilled person that you were born to be.
Yeah, that's really powerful because it's the only thing that works. And, you know, thinking about so many people have just immense things that have happened that have been unfair. And as you said, they didn't do anything to deserve it. But now what? Now you're there, you've got the trauma, and no one can heal it for you. There's a name for it. I think it's called the pedestrian problem. It's like, imagine that you get hit by a car and the driver was drunk. And let's say that the driver was Bill Gates. And let's say that you win a settlement. But if the damage that happened to your body can't be fixed with all the money in the world, and you just have to do physical therapy, then it's like, even though it is unfair that you have to do the physical therapy, there is no amount of money that you can throw at it that will stop you from having to suffer to build yourself back up. And I think a lot of people either fall prey to trap number one, which is they don't think they're worthy, or they fall prey to trap number two, which is it's so unfair they just don't take action.
Right.
But they're nonetheless in the situation that they're in, and if the whole punchline to life is neurochemistry and feeling joyful and, you know, being excited about who you are when you're by yourself, then it's like, well, you have to do the work, even if it isn't fair. And that to me,
especially if it isn't. Because there's two kinds of prisons that you can sentence yourself to or be sentenced to, right? One is all the physical shit you're talking about. The circumstances of your life, the circumstances of your body, the circumstances that are unfair. And then there is the mental prison. And that's the one you're in control of. So people can do all kinds of shit to you. And you can be born into situations that are not fair. They're not safe, they're cruel, it's unfair, you didn't deserve it. But the real power that you always have is how you react to it mentally. I'm not saying put lipstick on a pig and ignore the very real problems you're facing. I'm saying it begins with your mental attitude about your own ability to face it and to survive it, and to move past it. That's what I'm saying. Because without that, like, let's go back to the woman in the domestic violence shelter who's had the shit beaten out of her by partners, who has immense emotional trauma stored in her nervous system, stored in the neurochemistry of her brain. She has an extraordinary amount of hurdles to get through in her life to heal, to be safe, to break patterns that are associated with the trauma that she's experienced as a child, the trauma that she experienced in romantic relationships, the physical abuse. She has issues related to poverty. Can a human being survive those things and change? Of course they can. It begins, though, with the belief that you can. And so when I come back to this moment every single morning, you can have nothing and you can still have your own back. You can have tremendous problems and very real obstacles that you're facing. And you can have a mindset that says, through my efforts, my attitude, I can have an impact on the situation that I'm in. That's the power that I have. I can ask for help because I believe I deserve it. I can seek therapy because I believe I should heal because I deserve that. I can seek information from shows like Impact Theory about how to break trauma patterns, about how to regulate my nervous system, because I believe I am worthy of that. When I raise my hand in the mirror, I'm basically saying, fuck off to these people that hurt me because I believe that I deserve better. That's where it begins. It begins with you. Self-confidence, self-love, self-esteem, self-reliance, self-awareness. It all has the same self. You have to give yourself those things. You want validation? Give it to yourself. You want to be cheered for? Give it to yourself. You want to feel supported in life? Start by giving those things to yourself, because the most important relationship that you have is the one you have with yourself, and you work on it the least. It's the foundation of every relationship you have. And so I believe that there are simple things you can do, from looking at hearts, which doesn't solve your problems. It proves to you that it's possible to change the way your brain works. That's why I want you to do it. It's not going to take away poverty. It's not going to make you lose 100 pounds. It's going to prove to you that, shit, you do have power over the way your mind works. And when you get crafty about training your brain, you can do really cool shit. And when your attitude is optimistic, based on research, we know that you will work harder and keep going because you believe that it makes a difference. It begins with these simple things.
Speaking of tricks that you can do to get control of your mind, in the book you talk about what I'll call a pattern interrupt. Forget the exact phrase you use for it, but you talk a lot about, I'm not going to think about that.
I'm not thinking about that.
What does that mean? How do you do it? Why is it useful?
So it's what I started doing before the 5-second rule, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, because you can count backwards to do the same thing. But a lot of times it's the pattern of negative thoughts. I'm fat, I'm this, I'm that, I'm the other thing, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough. Or even just worrying. What if the Delta variant takes off? What if I don't go back to work? What if this happens? What if that? How is that helping you exactly? Like, there's productive worry, which is worry that motivates you to take action. And then there's destructive worry, which is worry that makes you literally circle the drain mentally. You always want to interrupt destructive worrying or any kind of destructive self-talk. So the second you catch yourself going, gosh, I look fat, or boy, I'm a loser, or there I go, I failed again, you're like, literally, slap that shit away, like high five it away. I'm not thinking about that. I'm not thinking about that. I'm not thinking about that. And you start with, I'm not thinking about that, because if you're so used to hearing I'm not good enough, there's no fucking way you're going to believe the mantra, I'm good enough. Because the thing about mantras are, and this is why most mantras are bullshit, is they don't work unless you believe them. And so there is power in creating what's called a meaningful mantra. But the first step to getting control of the negative self-talk is interrupt that shit. Don't listen to it. I'm not thinking about that. I'm not thinking about that. And then what I want you to do is just do that for a day. I'm not thinking about that. I'm not thinking about that. If you have any kind of thought that makes you feel bad, that you don't like, I'm not thinking about that. The next day, start to notice, what are the patterns in terms of the thoughts that come up? You know, when I was writing this book, one of my daughters talked about the fact that she's constantly feeling like she's not a good person. And so, for example, she missed a dentist appointment. And because she's constantly thinking, I'm not a good person, missing the dentist appointment becomes evidence. See, there I am again. I missed the dentist appointment. I'm not a good person. No. Are you kidding? Like, if somebody doesn't have the story, if somebody has a different story, like I'm a pretty good person, I do my best, and you miss the dentist appointment, a lot of us are like, oh, thank God, I can't stand the dentist. You know, I'll pay the $20 fee. I don't have to go. You don't attach, I'm a shitty person to it. And so she started using, I'm not thinking about that. She's not ready to believe she's a good person yet, because she's so used to saying, I'm not a good person. So the first step is interrupt the thing, then take notice, and then you can start to create what I call a meaningful mantra, because now we want to break the pattern by saying, I'm not thinking about that, or use the 5-second rule, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then when you're ready, you can create a meaningful mantra to replace it, because any pattern is going to repeat unless you replace it. And so meaningful mantras are things that you can be like, yeah, I can believe that. So it might be, I'm not perfect, but I'm trying. I'm not perfect, but I'm doing my best. I screw up sometimes, but I'm not a bad person. Like those kind of things that are sort of not like, yeah, superhero, mantra, I'm fabulous. Like most of us don't really feel that way about ourselves. So if you just are like, I'm doing the best I can, that's pretty empowering if you think about it. Or I can learn from this. Or this is temporary. I'll be okay. Those sorts of things are little ways to high-five your mind instead of, again, going low. You got a choice. Do you take yourself down or do you lift yourself up? Are you going outside of yourself or are you coming back in for what you need? I want you to come in and lift yourself up. That's what the high-five habit's about.
Interrupt yourself. Tell yourself an empowering story. That brings us to the second thing that I mentioned at the beginning, that in the book, it actually almost made me cry. I was like, whoa, I was surprised by how much it hit me. But I think you and I tell very different stories about the same story. And that was the thing that I found so interesting about the painting.
Oh.
Walk people through that moment. I think it's worth telling the story. And then we can talk about how you see it and how I see it. And I think the fact that we look at this differently may be the whole punchline.
Well, the fact that you almost cried and a robot was reading it to you as you were having the transcript of my new book read to you by a robot is amazing. Wait till you hear me read it, because in the audiobook, I sob through this story.
Really? I'm not surprised. Like, given that it hit me in the robot voice, as you say.
Oh my gosh.
So, yeah.
Okay, so this is one of these moments that's like a combination of science and the Hgh Effect and the RES and wanting something. So when I was a senior in college at Dartmouth, it was 1989. My parents came to see me, and we went to this mill in Vermont, and I walked into this famous mill called Simon Pierce. And there in the restaurant on the wall was this massive painting, Tom. And it was the size of a door. And I saw it, and I immediately was drawn to it. And this is another thing about this book. I believe that what's meant for you is trying to reach you. That you are neurochemistry, DNA, energetically aligned with some things and purposes and passions that just call to you. And for whatever reason, in 1989, as a 21-year-old person, I am now finding myself, I'm not in the restaurant, I am literally standing in the painting. I can hear the geese, the grass is blowing in the wind, I'm in the field that is depicted. And then all of a sudden, I'm back in the restaurant, I'm like, I am going to own this painting. Hgh Effect, right there. This is important to me. I have a full body sensation. I lean forward. Oh my God, it's $3,000. Not today, not today. That's it. I go back, I have dinner. But here's the thing. Once something's important to you, it never leaves your mind. If you always dreamt about being a singer-songwriter and you never did it, you will be haunted by that at the age of 70, because it's still right here, stored in the back of your mind. It's something that's meant for you, that's trying to call to you. You see, your dreams, you either pursue them or they fucking haunt you. So this painting imprinted itself on me. And for years, I would think about it. Anytime somebody would say the word Vermont, or there was hand-blown glass that was kind of heavy at a bar, I'd think about this painting. Now, my life goes on, almost a decade passes. I get married to my husband, Christopher, and we're going up to Vermont. And we go to the mill, because I want to see if the painting's still there. And we go all around the mill, and the artist is still there, Gail Shepard, but my painting's gone. And here's the interesting thing. Chris was more disappointed than I was, because I was so sure that at some point I would have enough money to track down the person that bought it, that I would, at some point, whether I was 70 years, 60 years, at some point I would own it. Now, it's interesting because there were other areas of my life where I did not have this assurance. But there was something about this painting. I kept an open mind. I believed it was possible, even when I wasn't doing anything about it. So a couple more years pass, I turned 30, and my husband asked everybody to just chips some money into an envelope and he hands me an envelope full of $500, I immediately think about the painting. Now, keep in mind, $500 isn't going to buy shit by this artist at this point. I'm pregnant. I should probably buy a crib or stools for our new house. But I pick up the phone and I call the mill. And I'm like, I would like to buy a piece by Gil Shepard. And I tell him my budget, and the guy kind of clears his throat and is like, well, I can send you Polaroids of the small pieces. And I'm embarrassed. And I say, by the way, there is this one piece. And I describe this painting as best as I can remember it in full detail. And the guy goes, well, that was before my time, but I bet Gail will remember. And I'm like, Gail? You know Gail? And he's like, of course I know Gail. She lives down the street. Here's her number. So I eventually call Gail. And we have this amazing conversation. And I say, by the way, there was this one painting almost 10 years ago. Big Vermont landscape, a stand of poplars down the center, grass blowing on either side. And I could hear her thinking. And she said, you know, Mel, over the years I've done so many large format paintings, I'd hate to guess which one it was and be wrong. How about this? Why don't we meet at the mill? We'll walk all around. I'll tell you the stories behind the paintings. And then if you don't like anything there, I'll take you back to my studio and you can look at what I'm working on. And if you don't like anything there, then you can look through my slides. And maybe, just maybe, you'll be able to find this painting that you saw over a decade ago. So I am like on fire now. We go to the mill, we meet her and her husband. She's a phenomenal. We're walking around. And Tom, as we're walking around and people are coming up to her, I'm realizing I'm fucked. Like, I can't afford any of these paintings. I am with somebody that I admire. Like, it'd be like meeting your favorite basketball player and knowing you can't afford a ticket to the game. And we sit down and she says, now that we're sitting down, I have something to tell you. And she says, there has only been 2 times in my entire life that I have done 2 studies of the same scene at the same time. Your painting is one of them. It's a pair. And the sister piece to the painting that you saw all those years ago is sitting in my studio where it has been waiting for the last 11 years for you to come looking for it. And so we drove down the road and we walked into her studio, and there on this big easel was the sister piece to my painting. And, you know, there I immediately could see slight differences, like the grass had slightly less movement in it. And you know, like a few less trees going down the center. It was the most exquisite moment of my life. It was like time collapsed. And I was standing in that mill in 1989 saying, this would be mine, with every fiber of my being believing it was true. And 11 years later, standing before it. And then, of course, I'm like, oh my God, I can't fucking afford this. And so I say to Chris, you know, I just promise me you'll buy me this someday. And so he turns to Gail and says, hey, Gail, how much for the big one? And she said, well, Mel can have it for $500, because clearly when I was making it for her. And it now hangs in my kitchen, and it is and it's on the author photo of the book, and it is a reminder that your mind is designed to help you get what you want. You just have to be willing to believe it's possible.
Yeah, that story really, really hit me. And the reason it hit me, I mean, partly kismet. It's just like, wow, like what are the odds? That's so crazy. And then the other part is that you get to tell a story about what that means, right? So whether it's, you know, the Einstein quote about how the most important decision any human has to make is whether you live in a friendly or a hostile universe. And I've always loved that he said it's a decision. Or whether you say, you know, this is the universe looking out for me, or whether you say your brain is going to guide you to the things you want, or, you know, for me, it's just that you get to stamp that with meaning. And I find that part of the human mind so powerful that it really doesn't matter what happens to us. What matters, what makes that an emotional story is that you get to stamp it with meaning.
Yeah.
And I don't know who first said that we're meaning-making machines, but it's like so spot on. And yeah, it was just so incredible hearing as you just walked us through. I mean, you do it just like you did it in the book. And that we can assign so much profundity to something like that, I think is exquisite. And, you know, to tie it up with a bow, you know, the whole thesis of your book is that there are these very simple things that you can do to unlock your mind and then to begin to guide your mind, to guide it away from the things that have caused you trouble towards the things that are going to empower you, such that you will take the action that you need to take in order to get the life that you actually want.
Exactly.
Mel, another incredible journey. I mean, really, really, I was impressed by the book. I think it is extraordinary. I think it is well worth people's time. I think it is chock full of things that people can use. Where can they connect with you? Is the book wherever one would normally find books?
You can buy it. I'm super excited. Like, it's literally releasing in 18 languages. And
you go.
Yeah.
All right, then.
And you can get it around the world. And the other thing that I love about it, yeah, I would love for you to buy the book. I'd love for you to listen to the audiobook because it's very different experience than reading the book. You should absolutely read the book. But also the audiobook is I am talking straight to you with a level of intention that is going to just scream through that microphone. And you can connect with me online. My website, Mel Robbins, is where you find me. But what I also love about everything that we're talking about is it's free. And you can use it with your kids. You can teach it to the senior citizens in your life. You don't have to have even graduated from high school. This is tools that you can put to use immediately, grounded in science, that absolutely work. And it's the beginning of a whole new relationship that you're going to have with yourself. And that's going to change everything.
I love it.
I love you.
I'll be right back. Boys and girls, the book is phenomenal. You won't regret it. Trust me. And as an Audible junkie myself, I can't encourage you guys enough to give that a listen, knowing that we'll be hearing it directly in her voice. And speaking of other things that will be amazing, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe. And until next time, my friends, be legendary. Take care. Peace.
I know now that our sleep quality is more important than our diet and exercise combined, and what it does for our health and also literally our physical appearance.
Hey everybody, welcome to Health Theory. My mission in life is to pull people out of the matrix by helping them build an empowering mindset. But the reality of personal empowerment is that while mindset is critical, the body and the mind are so interconnected that if you don't get your health in order, you will never unleash your full potential. To that end, with this show, I'm bringing on the world's most important thinkers on a wide variety of health-related topics so you can learn how to maximize your potential. Today's guest is the best-selling author of Sleep Smarter, host of the Model Health Show, one of the most popular and longest-running podcasts on health and fitness, and he's one of the top nutrition experts in the country. Additionally, he's the founder of Advanced Integrative Health Alliance, a functional medicine clinic, as well as someone who's been featured in Entrepreneur Magazine, Men's Health Magazine, and countless other major media outlets, including ESPN. He's also a frequent keynote speaker for numerous organizations, universities, and conferences. So please, help me in welcoming the man who cured his own incurable degenerative spine disease, Shawn Stephenson. Shawn, thank you for being here, man.
Very grateful, grateful.
So I'm super stoked to have you. We've flipped before where I had a chance to be on the other side of you asking me questions, which was a lot of fun. Yeah. And now diving into your world. And I think virtually anybody starting an interview with you would start with the sleep stuff. But I want to flip it and I want to talk about sprinting. We're coming around the corner. We hit that final stretch and your hip breaks.
Yeah.
What happened and then what were the knock-on effects?
Wow. You know, this was, make sure that this is incredibly important. At track practice, I'm coming around the curve onto the straightaway and I broke my hip. And there was no trauma involved. Nobody hit me. I didn't fall. It just broke because, you know, cut to a few years later, I finally get diagnosed with this degenerative bone disease. And at the time, being 16 years old, you know, you have the hormones of like a Greek god, you know, so, you know, you get the kind of standard of care, you know, take these NSAIDs, stay off the leg, you'll get better. And I did, but nobody stopped to ask the question, how can a young man break his hip just from running? And once I finally got this diagnosis, it felt good to know what the issue was, but also it kind of sent my world into a tailspin.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy that it broke. It's really crazy that they didn't ask why it happened.
Exactly,
but the thing that I find most interesting in the story is that you decide to ask the question, what are my vertebrae made of?
Yeah.
And taking that ownership, which you must have been like your late teens at that point.
Yeah, so this was 20 years old when I finally get the diagnosis. And I'm in college at the time. And, I went from like a chronic kind of nuisance of a pain to chronic debilitating pain over the course of a few weeks. And this is important and I always like to share this whenever I can. My very first physician, he put my MRI up for me to see, and he told me that I had the spine of an 80-year-old man. I had 2 ruptured discs, and my vertebrae were deteriorating. And so when he says this to me, I'm immediately like, okay, so what do we do? Like, let's fix it, And he's like, I'm sorry, son, there's nothing you can do about this. And what happened, and I know you've heard about this several times, the placebo effect is something where you get a positive injunction from somebody who's an authority figure, and you proceed to have certain symptoms happen or changes in your physiology. And a lot of people don't realize this, but placebos are actually 33% effective. That's the power of the mind. But what he did for me was something called a nocebo effect. This is giving somebody a negative injunction that something bad is going to happen, and your physiology begins to change from that. And so I spent the next 2.5 years in a lot of pain, a lot of drugs, prescribed and over the counter, and just laying on my floor, because not only was this painful, but it was embarrassing. I went from kind of being one of the cool guys to like, I'm walking around campus with a back brace and just, really kind of losing myself. I saw different doctors. I, went through the whole gamut of why me? Why did this happen to me? Why won't somebody help me? And really playing this victim role. And it wasn't until I actually decided to get well that everything changed. And most people never do that with their bodies, with their health, with their relationships. It's mostly like, I'll see what'll happen, wishful thinking, I'll give this a try. But when you really decide something, you're cutting away the possibility of anything else but that thing. And I'm a big student of lexicon. And the word decision is from the Latin de, meaning from, and caedere, which means to cut. So when you make a real decision about something, you cut away the possibility of anything else but that thing. And so I decided no matter what, I'm going to get well. And that sent me, and it wasn't like, the clouds parted and like the sun shined and everything was okay. I'm a very analytical person as well. And so I put a plan together. I decided, and now it's time to do something. Number one, put a plan together, and that plan entailed 3 specific things. I changed the way I was eating, which giving my body the actual raw materials that it needed to regenerate me was important. And I was on what I called the tough diet at the time, which is a typical university food. So I'm no joke, I'm eating pizza daily. My vitamin C is coming like from Sunny D. And so it's no wonder I was made out of terrible stuff, And so I asked this really important question, which you mentioned, okay, if my spine is deteriorating, if my bones are deteriorating, what is it actually made of? And that set me down this incredible path of discovery, because what we hear in kind of common culture is, if you want strong, healthy bones, drink milk. And come to find out, calcium is one of the least important things. And even getting it from your diet, it doesn't exactly work in your body the way that we're marketed to because it's marketing. And so I found out that things like silica, magnesium, sulfur-bearing amino acids, all these things are in some cases even more important. So I start to get all those nutrients in my body through food, primarily. Once I really got it, like food is gonna.
And was that, so how did you get that? Because that's where it's becoming a lot more popular now, but when you would have been going through this, people didn't really think like that.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is around the time I was thinking if I was eating licorice and it was fine because it was fat-free, right? And somebody said, well, I think if you eat too much sugar, it turns into fat. And like that didn't even make sense to me. I was like, how would that be possible?
Yeah, especially I'm from the Midwest. And so like there was like a wild oats market. Whole Foods had just opened. And so I think it's really important, the environment. When I had some friends, they would take me to the stores, and then, that gradually got me into like, not just the supplement aisle. And so I just began to flood my body with all these important nutrients and also hydration. So your disc in between the vertebrae and your spine. And you would think like, if I want these to be more hydrated, I need to drink more water, but it doesn't work like that. Your disc get hydrated through a process called remote diffusion. And so literally it's like the last place in your body that gets nutrients and hydration. And so you needed to really super hydrate yourself. Make sure your body has an abundance, like an overflow of nutrients to make sure they get to the right place. So that was number one, was nutrition. Number two was movement. And so exercise is really about two main things. Number one is assimilation. And I came across some research that showed that when you actually are doing walking while taking on specific supplements for your bones, your bone density goes even higher, all right? Because that walking helps your body to assimilate. Number two is elimination, elimination of toxins. Because your lymphatic system, which, especially when you're getting healthier, your body is trading out a lot of stuff. And there's a lot of dead cells, there's a lot of metabolic waste products. And so how do you get that stuff out of your system? You have to move, because your lymphatic system doesn't have a pump like your cardiovascular system does. And you actually have 4 times more lymph than you do blood. And so that movement was so important in healing. And here's the problem, is that oftentimes when you have an injury or an issue like this, we're told not to do anything. That's often the worst thing you can do, because things will start to atrophy. If you don't use it, you lose it. And so I just started to, and it's, of course, if anybody's dealing with like an acute problem right now, like take a day or two off, but I encourage people to do what you can in an intelligent way. And so for me, I could barely walk properly. And so I started off on a stationary bike, progressed to treadmill. I started jogging a little bit. Eventually I picked up the weights again. And, just to jump really quickly to the end of the story, I had lost 28 pounds in the next 6 weeks. Wow. And the pain I've been experiencing for 2.5 years was gone. But the third and most important part, now I know, was the rest and recovery, right? It seems like I was resting a lot by not doing anything, but it really wasn't. It was a lot of suffering, and my greatest struggle was at night going to bed, because the pain was so bad it would wake me up. And so I was on, various medications, and I basically had to drug myself to not wake up. And so it was like a pseudo sleep, and it would take several hours before I really felt like I was awake. And the things that I was doing during the day, changing my lifestyle, showed up for me on the pillow, because what I really wanted to promote for people is this understanding that if you're not sleeping well, you're not healing well. And this is where your body releases the vast majority of human growth hormone, of these various anabolic hormones, reparative enzymes. So when my sleep got improved, I got better so fast. And so I shifted all my coursework over to biology and kinesiology, and eventually opened a clinical practice. And oftentimes I would get those people who they were told there's nothing you can do. You have type 2 diabetes, blood sugars 400 without metformin. There's nothing you can do about it. And consistently seeing these folks be able to naturally regulate their blood sugar, oftentimes get off their medications, insulin, things like that. Because where there's a will, there's 10,000 ways. But it's also understanding that, first of all, just acknowledging that it is possible.
And that's what I love about your story, man. That, hearing you tell that, and I've heard you quote the Einstein quote before, that the most important decision anyone will ever make is whether or not they live in a hostile or a friendly universe. Which, A, most people don't recognize that as a choice or a decision. Yeah. And then 2, that from that, then people will take action because they believe that they will get an outcome. How did you come to that decision, that you live in a universe that's going to work for you?
Yeah.
When the doctor is the one telling you, multiple doctors, in fact, because you said, look, I was, conscious of going and getting multiple opinions. This wasn't one guy. Yeah. They all said the same thing. So how, in the face of that, do you make that decision one day, I am going to get better?
I think it's really valuable to understand the benefit of rock bottom. For me, after getting those, the words from the other doctors that, there's nothing, the same diagnosis, I had a choice to make. I'm either going to buy into this and continue to live as a victim, or I'm going to do something about it. At least try, But for me, it's beyond try. It's the decision, right? And so how I got to that place really was, I had nothing to lose at that point. I can continue as things are and continue in this suffering. And I think it was just a matter of realizing that, and I think this is really important, even though there are other people in our lives that might care for us, they don't walk in our shoes. So when the physician would tell me that, there's nothing that I could do, I knew, it hit me, they're not laying at home thinking about me. I'm thinking about them and why they can't help me. I have to really take responsibility for myself. And it's just basic logic. You know, if somebody's saying they can't help you, believe them. You know, and so I made the decision, like, if I'm going to get better, I need to do it. You know, I need to take action. It doesn't mean I'm not going to have great people to support me along the way. But, you know, as Jim Rohn says, no one can do your push-ups for you. You know, so I really had to take action. And it became, you know, and also I want to share this, is that if you really want something, you should make a study of it. You know, especially if you don't necessarily have a blueprint for a successful relationship, make it a study. If you're not doing well with your finances, make it a study.
And what does that look like for you?
I generally go right to the medical journals. You know, I dig through there. And another quote from Einstein is that, you know, if you can't explain it simply, you don't know it well enough. And so I really strive to make sense of these things that can be incredibly complex, but for no reason. It wasn't until I really honored my own voice and my gift in helping these things to really make sense for people. And so I'll dig around in that data, and that's the first thing I'll do. And then I'll look for some anecdotal and evidence as well, you know, people telling stories about it. But here's something else I do. I also, and this is the scary part, I also look at the problems with stuff. I also look at the things that are against what I might be believing. Most people don't want to do that. Like, we believe this particular supplement is going to work and it's the best thing, you know, since sliced bread. And then there's these other things that say, hey, wait a minute, this might not be the case. You have to have the courage to look at this too and come to a truly well-evolved thought construct. You know, and we all have that opportunity, but we tend to just want to believe what we believe and look for things to affirm that. You know, and you got to be careful with studies that do the same thing and who's funding the study as well. So I really get to that level most of the time in my research.
It's really interesting to me how, and look, like you said, look at the benefits of rock bottom, but it's really interesting to me how early you came to a lot of this. And I find how people tell their own story to be fascinating beyond all measure. And the opening of your bio says, the first half of my childhood was spent in an idyllic suburban neighborhood, and the second half of my childhood was in the rough and tumble inner cities around gangs and drugs. And you said the power came from both places, and it really helped me understand perspective. How much of that, if at all, played into your ability to sort of see through the trappings of everyone telling you it can't be solved in a way that you say it's just logic, but I think most people fall prey to that and they live there for 60, 70 years. Yeah. So how much of that mindset that you got from that sort of dual beginning do you think played into it?
Man, that really hit an emotional chord, hearing you say that. You know, that initial environment was really, it lays the foundation. Well, before the age of about 7, we're in like a theta brainwave state where a lot of things kind of get deeper into our psyche and our subconscious, our programming. And so it's really important, especially for parents, you know, and people who are just, that can be involved in kids' lives, to really understand how impressionable they are. And so I really got a great formatting disc from my grandmother, who really kind of instilled this greatness. She instilled the value of education. I loved learning. Like, I love the process of learning. And so I really picked up early on that you don't want to just learn stuff. You want to become good at learning. And when I shifted my residency, you know, going from this very protected, safe, loving atmosphere, you know, I'm in an environment where, you know, there's a lot of abuse, you know, physical abuse towards myself and my 2 younger siblings, you know, abuse with my mother and stepfather, and the fight, you know, physical fighting. You know, holidays were not like they are now, like get-togethers and family fun. We know the holiday there's going to be, police are going to show up. You know, that environment also taught me something really, really valuable, which is, you know, even though things aren't going well, even though we're short on money, there's always a way to figure it out. No matter how bad things look, we're going to be okay. So that really was a powerful seed, and combine that with the sense of greatness, the sense of the value of education, the sense of there's always a way to figure something out, really helped that moment of insight to take place, of that decision, that moment of decision. And this is the first time I've articulated this, but that's really how those two things come together.
Dude, I'm stoked that you shared that. That's it's so powerful, and in taking you as a whole and watching your show and watching you on other people's shows, there's this incredible Zen-like quality to your delivery, to your mission, to what you want to do. Like everything about it is so even keel, right? Because what I find with people that make that transition is it normally breaks them. And one of the things that I'm most intrigued about in life is, and I have the chills, we were just talking about this before we started rolling camera, where you were saying with schools, right? Do you go to one ultra tailored, or do you go that's going to be the hardship where my kids have to adapt? And I don't know what's better, because the number of people that are broken by the inner cities, the percentage has got to be absurd, right?
Yeah.
In 80, 90, it's just crazy.
Yeah.
But the people that make it, the ones that find that center, whether it's to be self-centered or not, they find that sense of self. When you said that, that really hit me. That finding that sense of self, not letting the outside world dictate who they're going to be. Like now all of a sudden adversity is not such a big deal, because you've got like that compass inside of you and you know where you're going. That feels to me very appropriate for what you've become known for, which is sleep. Which even your own publisher was like, write a diet book and you'll be huge and famous and we'll all be rich. Yeah. And you were like, but that's not the truth that needs to be told.
Yeah.
Did that play in? Like, was that a moment of Sean knowing who he is and what he's trying to do, and he's just gonna get to that end no matter what?
You know what? Wow. Yes, that definitely was. You know, I don't want to cut corners. I wanted, you know, it's integrity is a big word for me. And I wanted to take righteous action. You know, this is all bigger than us. You know, the impact that you're making, the legacy that you're leaving, you know, is so powerful. And we're part of like a big change that's happening with our culture overall, you know. And I knew that this particular topic is, and me being a nutritionist, like I was all like, food matters, food first, food is the most important thing. But in my practice and seeing people coming in that, you know, we've got these folks over here, you know, 80% of the time are able to reverse type 2 diabetes, heart disease, get off their lisinoprils and all this different stuff. And then we've got this category of people who just like literally sometimes would ironically kind of keep me up at night. Like, what is wrong? Like, I'm doing all these things right. Are they lying to me? And it wasn't until I started to ask people about their sleep that it just like, it changed everything. And this was about 6 years ago. And so then, and here's the key, I can't just tell people they need to sleep more. You know this, like people don't want to change that much. Like we want change, but we want it to be a little bit, right? And so I found clinically proven strategies that are super easy to implement, almost things that can happen on automatic to help them improve their sleep quality, right? And once we did that, it's like the floodgates would open for people. You know, who've been struggling for sometimes, you know, 15, 20 years with their weight. Finally, the weight comes off, you know, and seeing people struggling with heart disease or high cholesterol, you know, the so-called bad cholesterol, and seeing those numbers finally get regulated once we got their sleep optimized. And I knew that this was an incredibly important part of the conversation that was left out. And as we'll talk about, I know now that our sleep quality is more important than our diet and exercise combined. And what it does for our health and also literally our physical appearance. Fascinating stuff, how much more fat you lose when you get optimal sleep. It's insane.
That's a bold statement. So walk me through what are some of the just core benefits that I'm going to get, assuming that I'm sleeping suboptimally. Like, why is that a problem? Since that's probably one of the most celebrated like things, like when you get a little sleep, people like champion you. Normally I'd sleep 5 to 6 hours a night with no alarm. Okay, I haven't set an alarm in 15 years. So that was my cycle. I go to bed early, very consistently. My diet is on point. My exercise is on point. And so I'd wake up feeling awesome.
Yeah.
And so I thought, this is cash money. But because I don't set an alarm, that my sleep cycle will change. And right now I'm getting like 7 to 9 hours out of nowhere and super consistently. And I literally have no idea why. I'm warmer now. So I used to be freezing cold at all times. And then at the same time that and I don't know, correlated, causative, no idea, I've started being warmer while I sleep and then during the day. So what are like the core components of sleep? Was something bad happening to me or less than optimal when I was only getting 6 hours, even though I felt good?
Yeah.
Any correlation between the heat
Oh,
and the
listen,
extra sleep?
There's a lot to unpack there. Number one, what's so interesting is that you were doing something exceptionally right as far as what the research shows with improving your sleep, which is you were going to bed kind of consistently a little bit earlier than other folks might. And so what we call this is this anabolic window, or what we call money time sleep. And this is generally between the hours of 10 and 2 because it's more lined up with your natural melatonin secretion. So if you go to sleep during those times, you actually spend more time in the deepest, most anabolic stages of sleep, and you tend to produce more human growth hormone than other folks. So you were already winning with that. This is why you have a tendency to feel better even if you're getting less sleep, because this isn't called sleep more, right? It's sleep smarter. And there are many people who sleep, 8 to 9 hours and they wake up feeling like straight up, hot garbage. You know what I'm saying? And they're just wondering why. It's because it's the quality of sleep. And when I say quality of sleep, what does that mean? Let's break that down. So your sleep is regulated by changes in your brain waves. It's really fascinating stuff. And we still don't know really what sleep is. Trying to define sleep is like trying to define, when Forrest Gump is like, life is like a box of chocolates, sleep is like pretending to be dead. We don't really know, right? But we do know the changes that happen in the brain. We cycle from kind of a normal waking state with gamma, beta. We're probably in beta right now. We move to alpha, theta, delta is where the deep anabolic dreamless sleep takes place. And we need all of them. And there's a certain percentage we spend in each that helps to rejuvenate our mind and bodies. And if you optimize certain things, you'll do it more efficiently. One of those gear shifts, like if you think about your body like this kind of manual transmission, is melatonin. Like people hear about melatonin as a sleep hormone. It just helps your body to efficiently go through your sleep cycles. And if your melatonin is suppressed by various things, I'll share a couple, then you're not going through those efficiently. And you can wake up feeling like a piñata after the party the next day, even though you're spending all this time on the mattress. So that's number one. Number two, there's this interesting process called thermoregulation. There's a natural drop in your core body temperature at night to help facilitate sleep for all of us, if things are running properly. But what was fascinating, and I shared a study about this, is that they tested insomniacs, and everyone in this particular clinical study all had too high body temperature at night. It would not go down. And so what they did was they fit them with these thermosuits, right, that lowers their skin temperature, not even their core temperature, just 1 degree, and virtually eliminated all their symptoms of insomnia.
Whoa.
Ambien can't do that, all right? And it's as simple as paying attention to how your body temperature influences your sleep. And so with your body temperature changing like that, it's kind of feeling more of an insulation. As a result of having more sleep, there's a ton of different things that could be correlated there. So I'm not gonna say that the sleep is a causative factor, but it's really interesting how your body does change in accordance to sleep. There's a natural rise in your core body temperature as the day goes, as the night goes on, that helps to kind of wake you up. So what I did want to share though, when I said that kind of bold statement in the beginning, when we're talking about how sleep influences your body composition, I think everybody needs to know this. This study really blew my mind, and this was done at the University of Chicago. And they took people and they put them on a calorie-restricted diet, kind of typical stuff, again, I'm taught in college, to see the impact on weight loss when they're sleep-deprived or getting enough sleep, right? So they put the people on this particular diet, monitor everything. One phase of the study, they're getting 8.5 hours of sleep, all right? And then they track all their metrics. Another phase of the study, same exact diet, same exercise, they don't change anything else, but now they sleep-deprive them, and they take away 3 hours of sleep. So now they're getting 5.5 hours of sleep versus 8.5 hours of sleep. At the end of the study, they found that when individuals were well rested, they burned 55% more body fat just by getting more sleep. And so the question is, how does this happen? Melatonin, when I talked about this a little bit earlier, it's not just that it's involved in sleep, it's also involved in fat loss. And this study, this was done in the journal Pineal Research, found that melatonin production helps to increase your body's mobilization of something called brown adipose tissue, right? This is a type of fat that burns fat, all right? And the reason that it's brown is that it has more mitochondria. So it's very energy dense, right? These mitochondria, just for people who, I'm sure people have heard of this, but it's like these energy power plants in your cells that are creating the energy currency of your body, like how you experience energy, the energy exchange, something called ATP. And so when you are producing adequate melatonin, you're producing and mobilizing adequate amounts of brown adipose tissue, which just puts you in a metabolically advantaged state, all right? But if you're not getting the melatonin production, which you've got to meet 2 requirements, number 1, you need a biological night. So that means this could actually be during the day, but it's a consistent cycle of when it gets produced. But the other requirement needs to be met, that you need darkness. Your body produces melatonin exclusively in darkness. And so that's one. Also, how do they get that body fat change? Hgh production, which we talked about too. Human growth hormone is muscle sparing, and it's a big driver of energy. It's also known as a youth hormone. Kids have an insane amount of Hgh being produced. This is why they have so much energy. We have a pretty sharp decline in our production right around 18 to 20. But my argument is that around 18 to 20, we generally in our culture, like we leave the house, we might go to college, that kind of thing, and we no longer have structure, we no longer have rules, and we're not going to produce as much Hgh. Third thing, really quickly, is, and this all has to do with the diet and the food choices, is leptin, all right? And I know people have talked about leptin before, but leptin is your body's kind of glorified satiety hormone. And so when you're producing adequate amounts of leptin, you feel more in control, right? You feel more satiated. But when leptin kind of falls off the map, or you have leptin resistance can take place, then we're going to have some pretty big issues with you regulating your cravings and your appetite. And so Stanford University researchers found that just one night of sleep deprivation radically suppresses your leptin. And now I hope folks can start to pay attention whenever you might not get the best sleep, how your cravings change the next day. You're going to have a tendency to want to, number 1, eat more. Number 2, to want to eat more kind of the starchy, crunchy, salty, sugary type things. And I remember my wife, who's actually here, when we had our son, and she's never seen me eat this food. I was sitting there like waiting for the baby to come. I was eating chocolate covered raisins. I'm just like, and I didn't even realize I was doing it. You know, it was like 3 o'clock in the morning, you know? And so that's another thing. And last one I'll share, and there's so many that create that change in your body composition, but this one is incredibly important, is cortisol. Cortisol has been drugged through the mud recently. You know, it's getting blamed for everything, but it's not really a bad guy. It's just misunderstood, all right? Cortisol is incredibly important. For example, cortisol is important for your thyroid to work, right? And that's kind of like the metabolism regulator of your body. But here's the thing, just one night of sleep deprivation radically increases your cortisol and suppresses melatonin actually as well. But this rise in cortisol has a really powerful ability to start to break down your muscle tissue, which your muscle is your body's kind of fat burning machinery. And so it can convert your muscle tissue into glucose. It's a process called gluconeogenesis as a kind of fight or flight response, because your physiology doesn't know why you're not sleeping. You know, it must be some danger about, you know? And so understanding those major hormones, and there's many others, you start to see the picture that gets painted with just how much your sleep quality impacts your physical appearance.
It's really crazy. I've always known you need sleep, but I didn't know why. And so getting into, or transitioning, I should say, because I always knew you needed sleep, because if I didn't get it, I felt terrible. Yeah. But that was sort of the end of it. And I even let myself just stop at that. We don't really know why you sleep, but not diving into the real breakdown, which is really fascinating. So what are things then that people can do to actually optimize their sleep? Yeah,
this is what it's really all about. You know, I like to start with the low-hanging fruit first. And something really, really fascinating is just simply changing or embracing the time of day that you exercise can improve your sleep quality. And so Appalachian State University did a really cool study, and they wanted to see what time of day, exercising at various times of day, how does it impact your sleep quality? And so they had the study participants to exercise exclusively at 7 a.m., and another phase exclusively at 1 p.m. in the afternoon, another phase exclusively at 7 p.m. in the evening. They compiled all the data, and at the end of the study, they found that morning exercisers spend more time in the deepest, most anabolic stages of sleep, so they're producing more human growth hormone. They have more efficient sleep cycles, what we've been talking about. They also tend to sleep longer, and this is the one that kind of can get glanced past, on average, they had about a 25% greater drop in blood pressure at night. So what's up with that? That's correlated with a deactivation of your sympathetic fight or flight nervous system, right? So you're actually able to shift gears, get to that parasympathetic rest and digest calming down by getting some exercise in the morning. And so how do we employ this though? That's the question. Because some people it's just like, I can't exercise in the morning. And there's also people who exercise in the morning who might have terrible sleep. And it's because this is not like the magic bullet. This is a thing that's stacking your condition. If you're doing this and then messing up the one I'm going to talk about next, you're probably not going to have the best sleep. So here's how to employ this, just 5 minutes. And I tested this. Each morning I do this 5 minutes of exercise. It might be just jumping on a rebounder, a little mini trampoline for 5 minutes, go for a quick power walk, do some Tabata, which is just 4 minutes, and a little mobility work. And
I guess most people don't know what Tabata is.
High intensity interval training, basically. It's 20 seconds of exercise followed by 10 seconds of rest, repeated over and over again for 4 minutes. And in his clinical studies, this was found to outperform, traditional cardio, like the kind of moderate intensity 45 minutes of exercise in 4 minutes.
Wow.
The change in your cardiovascular benefits, body composition, and also change in your mitochondria as well. This is why it works. It does something called a cortisol reset. All right, and we talked about cortisol, but again, it's a good thing if it's in the right time and the right amount. Clinically, I would call these people tired and wired that would come in looking at the hormone panels, and the cortisol would be really low in the morning and high at night. Thus, they have sleep problems. So you naturally, if your cortisol is on a natural hormone rhythm, it would be elevated at its peak in the morning, right around 6 a.m. to 8 a.m., and then gradually decline as the day goes on.
Does that have to do with what time you wake up?
Sort of. I mean, the cortisol will kind of tend to nudge you out of sleep, but also we'll tend to notice that as your sleep goes on, it becomes lighter and lighter anyways, right? This is when you tend to remember your dreams, like at the end of the sleep. And so getting this little boost, like helping your body to propel and get your cortisol up via exercise helps to reset that rhythm and get you back on track. So that's why it works. So that's number one, low-hanging fruit. Just get in 5 minutes of exercise. Start in the morning, no matter what. Just 5 minutes is all you need. It's gonna help to create this snowball effect of good things for you. 5 minutes. If this is the time you do go to the gym and do your full workout, so be it, all good. But everybody who's not already doing that, just get that 5 minutes in. The second one, and this one is more of the tough love and the most difficult, but this is the most important one in our culture today. And this has to do with our tech, all right? So Harvard researchers have confirmed that blue light exposure from our favorite devices, our iPads, our iPhones, Androids, tablets, televisions, they do in fact suppress your melatonin substantially.
Because your body essentially thinks the sun's out? Is that the problem?
So we have photoreceptors that are always trying to gauge what time it is, right? Because our bodies are wired up to be in sync with nature. But only recently, like literally just the past few decades, have we been able to manipulate and basically create a second daytime, right? So your body's it doesn't really know how to figure it out. And so the blue and white spectrum specifically are the ones that are more similar to daylight. And so what it's doing is, and so here's what the researchers found. Basically, every hour you're on your device at night suppresses melatonin for about 30 minutes, right? So if you're on you watch a movie, a 3-hour movie, for example, your melatonin is gonna be suppressed. Even if you go to bed right after, you're not producing adequate melatonin for about an hour and a half. And so again, you can be unconscious from sheer physical exhaustion, but you're not gonna go through your sleep cycles efficiently. And so just be mindful of that. What I encourage people to do is to give yourself a screen curfew, just 30 minutes, all right? I don't wanna make this complicated, just 30 minutes. But here's the rub. We are addicted to our devices, like straight up. We just need to be honest. I am, we all are, Basically, it's because of this dopamine loop, right? Dopamine is so powerful, so interesting. Dopamine is one of the things I truly feel has helped to create our civilization as it is, because it drives us to seek, right? Dopamine drives us to seek and to grow and to find, to discover. The internet is perfect for manipulating this, because every time you look for something, you find something, especially social media. You seek, find, seek, find. You produce the dopamine, it drives you to look. But why do you keep going is every time you find something, you get a little bit of a hit from your opioid system. It's like this slow drip, right, of morphine. And so it starts to feel really good. And to the point where you might be doing your work and you've got a deadline and you just, I check Instagram real quick. Before you know it, it's 30 minutes later and you fall into the internet black hole. Just it just pulls you in. So be aware of that. I'm not saying, again, our connection with tech is just going to grow. So I'm not bashing that. It's just be aware of it. And that when you try to abide by this principle, which will really, really help your sleep quality, to give yourself a screen curfew, you can't just sit there and twiddle your thumbs, because you'll get what I call the internet jitters, right? You'll start getting like a little bit of a withdrawal effect. Like, let me just check one post. What we have to do is this: you have to replace it with something of greater or equal value. It's really that simple. Hopefully, it's what I encourage people to do. This is an opportunity to connect, right? Connect with your significant other, your kids, the people, like physical, like have a real conversation with somebody, right? I know it sounds crazy, but it really works. It's really, really good. And also, this is a great opportunity if if you're in a relationship or not, whatever you're into, you could, utilize, and I have got a chapter on this as well, intimate time, because there's a big connection between sex and sleep. And there's also a big connection between sleep and sex and how it impacts your sex life. And so when we have an orgasm, for example, we produce a cocktail of chemicals, including oxytocin, norepinephrine, prolactin. And oxytocin, for example, has been found clinically to basically combat the effects of cortisol. And hopefully sex is more interesting than Instagram, but I don't know. It depends on how you're doing it. And so that's what I want people to do: a screen curfew, and or use these hacks. Utilize some blue light blockers. And so for your desktops, laptops, things like that, you can get an app called Flux that pulls out the most troublesome sleep-sucking spectrum of light from your screen. It basically cools your screen off. And it's a simple app. You set it and forget it. It's totally free. You just go to Dr. Google, type in f.lux, and a couple clicks and it's on your device. I've been using it for maybe 5 or 6 years. I love it. And for your telephone, your cell phone, we've got on the iPhones built in now is Night Shift. With Androids, the best one out there from my research is one called Twilight. So there's options for everybody. And then what about the ambient light at night, or if you're watching a movie? Again, don't get too neurotic about it, but if this is a problem for you and you're not sleeping as well as you could be, or your results, your body composition not changing, you're not getting that blood pressure down, you're not having that focus you need through the day, then you might want to address this. But another little hack is to get some blue light blocking glasses. The first ones I had was straight up like I just built a birdhouse. But now there's some really cool, stylish ones that you could rock. As a matter of fact, you'll create a neural association when you put the glasses on, and you'll start to get sleepy. It's nuts. And that is another thing right there, is to create an evening ritual, right? Your brain is always looking for patterns. A lot of successful people, especially listening to the things that you're putting out there, have a success ritual in the morning. But a great morning starts the night before, a truly great morning. And so a couple of quick things people can do is the thermoregulation piece. Turn down your thermostat, all right? Now this is gonna hit a pressure point for some people, but according to research, between 62 and 68 degrees Fahrenheit is ideal for sleep. And so for some people, it's gonna sound a little bit frosty, but lowering the thermostat a little bit can have incredible benefit for your sleep. But this doesn't mean you can't use your covers and put on some warm socks, that kind of thing. So cooling off this thermostat, making sure that your bedroom, ideally, I call it a sleep sanctuary. And so that when you walk into your bedroom at night, if your brain has a neural association, when I go into my bedroom, I'm watching television or I'm working, those channels are gonna fire because of the myelin getting laid down over the years of you doing that behavior, or even months it can get laid down. And so you might have the intention of going to bed, but if your TV's in there, your brain is gonna be firing, expecting to watch television, and parts of your brain are gonna be waking up in a way. And so I encourage people to get the tech out of your room, have your bedroom be a sleep sanctuary, or some place that's just for the double S, which is sleep and sex. Here's also a really interesting reason why. There's an Italian study done. They found that couples who have a television in their bedroom have 50% less sex.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And this is a little bit more middle-aged, a little past middle-aged, the people in the study. And I know some people are like, that's not true, I have sex all the time. You probably do it in a snowstorm. Like, it doesn't matter where you are. Like, you're a human rabbit, it doesn't matter. But for other people, it's like a distraction, right? It's a distraction, and it can also, create all of those kind of chemical soup issues that we've been talking about with elevating cortisol and those kind of things. So ideally, get your television out of the room, the other tech, and last thing with the sleep environment I'll share. When I talked about melatonin, you need those two conditions, biological night, and you also need a dark environment. And so if you're in an environment where you're maybe in a suburban or city environment where there's like neighbors' porch lights coming in, there's LEDs outside, cars coming up and down the street, as crazy as this sounds, that small amount of light, what we're now dubbing light pollution, can have a significant impact on your sleep quality. And here's why we know this. Cornell University, I think, did the best study on this. And they took a test subject and had them sleep in an otherwise dark room. And they took a light, a fiber optic cable, and a light the size of a quarter and put it behind their knee. And that was enough to disrupt their sleep cycle. Because your skin also has photoreceptors that is sending information to your brain, your nervous system, your internal organs to try to tell your body what time it is. It's trying to figure it out. So we want to get rid of that artificial light exposure. Now, does this mean moonlight and stars? No, humans have evolved with those things. And their lux, like I actually put a lux chart in the book, is so small compared to even the weakest fluorescent bulbs. And so get yourself some blackout curtains if that external light is an issue. Internal light, your alarm clocks and, light, lamps, some people still are sleeping with their lights on and things like that. Be mindful of that. And also what you can do is just change the bulb color. If you still have issues with the dark, which some adults do, and that's okay, you can change the bulb color. And I actually had some NASA scientists, or people that work with them, to send me some different bulbs because folks in space, they don't have that biological clock. And so they would experience all these different health challenges. And they had to try to figure it out. And they knew that it was an issue with their sleep. And so they started to give them different bulbs for different times of day, in a way, even though they're in outer space. So it's really cool what you can do with these little hacks. But bottom line is you want to have a dark cycle so you can produce melatonin. And, those are just a few of the different things people can do.
It's really interesting because you've talked about how, like the light behind the knee, you've got these photoreceptors and they're communicating. There's a lot of signaling going on. You've said that the brain makes the body, and then you've also said that food is data. Talk to me about what do you mean by food is data? I think that's a pretty powerful concept.
Yeah, definitely. This was a big game changer for me early on when I realized that, the food that I was eating wasn't just food, it was information. And every single bite of food that I was eating, and this is something that I've been studying now for over 10 years, I absolutely love this, is something called nutrigenomics. And it's a study looking at how every single molecule of food that you eat impacts your genetic expression. Food is that powerful. And several other epigenetic factors like sleep, which might be the biggest epigenetic influence, you get to choose what kind of copies are being made of you. Your genes are basically blueprint to print out certain copies. And there's upwards of like 4,000 different variations that one gene can do. And you get to have a big role, a big part in how those genes are getting expressed. So understanding that when we eat a particular food, it isn't just I'm just eating this thing. It's setting off a cascade of events. And it's incredibly empowering, but also can be really sobering. And again, I don't want to get people into the neurotic state because I've been there, but it's more like the majority of what we want to do is things that are hormone healthy, things that are healthy for your DNA, things that are healthy for your genetic expression. Because, you have a big influence on that. And so, early on, really kind of having that light bulb go off, it really empowered me to start making food decisions that can help me. Because, if you really think about this, I had the spine of an 80-year-old man when I was 20 years old. In some ways, I'm like Benjamin Button, all right? Like, I'm aging backwards, Have you guys talked about telomeres yet?
On the show, no.
So telomeres are basically the most valuable asset that we have currently to basically tell us how long we're going to live, all right? And so what do I mean by that? Your telomeres are like these the eaglets at the end of your shoestrings that keep your shoestrings from unraveling. That's kind of like how telomeres work. They're the end caps at the end of your chromosomes. And as life goes on, your cells divide and those they keep getting clipped off. Those telomeres get clipped off shorter and shorter to the point where your DNA basically unravels, right? And so the crazy thing is that sleep, your sleep spectrum, you know, whether you're getting high quality sleep or sleep deprived, could be the biggest influence on your telomere length. All right, so literally aging you faster when you're sleep deprived. So because, you know, when we're younger, we're like, sleep 3 hours, whatever, it's no big deal, and you can, quote, get away with it. And you can. But what you're doing is accelerating your aging process. I know that when this was happening, even before I got the diagnosis, sleep just wasn't something I thought about, you know? And so I was accelerating my aging process, little did I know. Another huge player in that is the information that we put into our body. You know, the food and the water. And also a big player is our environment, you know, our relationships, the people around us. And if you were to ask me, you know, sleep is more powerful than exercise and nutrition combined on your physical appearance and your health. But your relationships are the biggest governing force over all of it, because that is the most influential thing on the decisions you make with your sleep, on the decision you make with the food that you eat, on the decisions you make on whether or not you're exercising or when and how you do it. You know, so it's incredibly important to be mindful of, if we're looking at ways that we can stave off the aging process, stay young, vital, healthy, happy, as long as possible, we need to be mindful of all of those things. And again, I don't want to create a neuroses today, but there's a way to go about it. And I think that the foundational piece is listening to people like you know, constantly, you know, every day, getting that daily dose of like getting your mind right, getting your inner game together, and immersing yourself in information like this, and carry that with you into the world, and do your best to get around people that are uplifting you, that are supporting you in you being the person that you want to become.
No question. So before I ask my last question, where can these guys find you online?
Awesome. So my big place that people find me is generally through my show. It's called The Model Health Show. And so people can check that out on anywhere you listen to your podcasts. And I guarantee you're going to love it. I mean, my home online is themodelhealthshow.com. So they can find the show there as well. They can find Sleep Smarter there too. And my social media is there. And also people can find Sleep Smarter just, you know, where you buy books, Amazon, all that good stuff, or you can go to sleepsmarterbook.com.
Nice. All right, and now my final question. If you could recommend people to make one change, but only one change to their life to have a massive improvement on their health, what would it be?
You know what's so funny? It really does go back to the last thing I said. The number one thing, the very best thing that you can do is to get yourself around healthy people. You know, everybody's heard this statement by now, you know, you're the average of the 5 people that are closest to you. It has a tremendous impact, and I always like to support everything I say with science, but Princeton University did an interesting study, and they had individuals get together and create rapport, right? Just basic little small talk conversation. And within just a couple of minutes, their brain waves synced up, all right? The frequency at which their brains were moving literally started to match. That happens all the time. You're syncing up with the people around you. So if the number one thing you can do to transform your health is to get yourself around healthy people. Get yourself in the environment, because it's very difficult to go to McDonald's if you're with a healthy person. Like, you know, you guys are like out, you know, just came from the gym, and, you know, they're on their way to Whole Foods or whatever. You're like, can you stop and grab me a McRib? You know, it's like highly unlikely that you'll do that, you know, just from a logical sense. But from this kind of even metaphysical, deeper level, you really are a product of your environment. And the great thing about humans is that we're not just a product of our environment, we're a creator of our environment. So you can consciously choose that. And that's what's going to help you to take your things to another level.
I love that, Sean. Thank you so much for being on the show, man. That was
pleasure,
incredible. Guys, this is, I'm telling you, somebody that you are absolutely going to love diving into the world. The way that he answered that last question tells you everything that you need to know about Sean Stephenson. He should have said sleep, because sleep moves more books, but he didn't. He said being around the people, getting around healthy people. He talked about relationships, because that's the truth. And when somebody is far more interested in the truth than they are in moving units, that's when, ironically, they actually move more units, because you know that you can trust them, and they really build credibility within their community. His show is amazing, and that is but the tip of a very large iceberg of somebody who cares very deeply about actually helping people. And that's what you're going to see as you dive deeper and deeper into his world. is not only is he trying to get things backed up by science, but this is stuff that he's experienced in his own life. He's worked with thousands of people in his clinical practice, seen how it plays out with them. He doesn't look away from the things that disprove what he believes. In fact, as he mentioned earlier, he stares right at those things, goes after them because he wants to continually update his thinking, which makes him an incredibly powerful mind that I hope that you guys will really go and learn from because he has so much to offer. All right. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe, my friends. And until next time, be legendary. Take care.
okay, I'm pretty much done. I can't do more than what I've done so far. I need this to dry up and finish up. So, and yeah, I especially with her head, or else her head is not going to dry in position and it's going to start moving. So that is pretty much her. I am going to sparkle her up and stuff like that. So what I might just do is I will sparkle her up and everything on Friday before I put it onto the cake. And obviously then I'll put her wings on. Her wings need to be super dry. But that's me. Oh, wait, you can't see me. Hi. So that's me for today. Just before 11:30, which is good timing because, like I said, we're going to be without power from 12. So have a fabulous Wednesday, and we will see you on Friday with finishing up this beautiful lady and making the throne that she will be sitting on. Anyway, guys, have a fantastic day, and we'll see you on Friday.